I watched every game of Milwaukee Bucks Summer League, so you didn't have to. Well, except for one, because I missed the Phoenix game, and then there was another, because I thought they only played 4 games, and wasn't even aware of the fact that they played Washington. But whatever, I watched 3 out of 5 games, and point is, I saw enough to give my 2 cents. And honestly speaking, they might have been the worst team in Vegas, and the numbers back that up as well, as Milwaukee was just one of 3 winless teams in Vegas, and posted by far the worst scoring differential of any other team in the league over that 5-game stretch. And their main issues, simply put, just came down to a lack of on-ball offensive creators. They didn't have a true ball handler or playmaker that could be trusted to run the offense, and because of that, they didn't get the best looks and turned the ball over in bunches. And with their offense being so atrocious, it took a toll on the team defensively, given they were a pretty horrible transition defense. And when you pair heavy turnovers with poor transition defense, there's a good explanation as to why the team is struggling. As bad as the team looked collectively though, we did see some bright spots from an individual standpoint, which is more what Summer League is about anyways. Because at the end of the day, teams are using Summer League as an opportunity to fill out their rosters and play their young guys enough to get them the experience they need at an NBA level. Yeah, it would be nice to win some games, but it's not the end-all be-all in Summer League. So with that being said, we'll take a closer look at what we saw out of these 6 guys during their time in Vegas, breaking down the good, bad, and ugly. Starting with the player that most Bucks fans probably have questions about, first-round rookie AJ Johnson, who statistically didn't have the most efficient Summer League ever, but the promise was certainly there, because I didn't see anyone in Vegas who was nearly as fast as Johnson or possessed as much burst off the dribble as he did. And when you combine these attributes with his freakish 38-inch vertical, this made for one of the more impressive interior finishers at Summer League, and his ability to generate rim pressure in general was extremely impressive, as at 6'5" with a 6'8" wingspan, Johnson's combo of speed, length, and shift was unlike any other, and his on-ball creation as a whole stuck out to me, especially considering he got it done from deep as well. I know the sub 33% shooting can seem like a red flag, but a lot of his misses just had to do with poor shot selection, because not only was he an effective catch-and-shoot 3-point shooter, but he flexed some impressive range as well. But like I said, this does come with a downside, because his shot IQ just isn't quite there yet, as he had plenty of moments where he one-shot chucked a 3 or a deep 2 early in the shot clock without trying to find a better look, and his processing speed as a whole just isn't at an NBA level yet. And this was especially noticeable in the pick and roll, because he'd often tend to over dribble and miss the read in those type of sets. When he was patient in letting the play develop, he'd see better results, but it wasn't often, and over dribbling was a common theme for AJ throughout Summer League, and it was the heavy root of most of his turnovers. And when you combine the questionable processing speed with the tendency to over dribble, it's no wonder why AJ wasn't fully capable of running Milwaukee's offense. As for the defensive side of the ball, he definitely has the physical tools to be good on that end, especially given his length and lateral quickness, but as of right now, his lack of strength severely limits him as an on-ball defender. As an off-ball defender, Johnson had his moments where he executed timely rotations and blew up plays, but for the most part, his awareness isn't great yet, and he gets caught ball watching pretty frequently, which can lead to easy backdoor opportunities for the opposing offense. Overall, AJ's defensive activity is pretty solid, and he at least makes an effort on that end of the ball. He's just extremely raw, which leads us to Milwaukee's second-round rookie in Tyler Smith, who, like his buddy AJ Johnson, is extremely raw. At 6'10", 225, with a 7'1" wingspan, Smith showed the potential to be a pretty solid stretch 4, and maybe even a stretch 5 in some cases, as he was pretty effective off the catch from deep, and was extremely impressive in the pick and roll as both a roller and a popper, which doesn't even mention the fact that his screen setting in general is just solid. Pair all this with a decent handle and the ability to pull up in transition, and Smith provides a lot of versatility offensively, but where he lacks is defensively, because despite having the physical tools to be a solid defender at the next level, his defensive IQ isn't there yet, and it's why as of right now, he doesn't have any positional versatility outside of the 4, as he's not good enough at the point of attack on the perimeter to play the 3, and when the Bucks experimented with him at the 5, his rotations weren't great, and he'd often get punished for being out of position. All in all, he's just not the most disciplined defender at the moment, which limits his versatility for now. But given what he can already do offensively, being a stretch big certainly isn't out of the question. Which leads us to the Bucks' second year guys in Andre Jackson Jr. and Chris Livingston. After going through an entire season of watching the Bucks' perimeter defense suck following the losses of guys like Jrue Holiday, Javon Carter, Grayson Allen, and Wesley Matthews, seeing a guy like Andre Jackson, who puts in as much effort as he does defensively, was so refreshing. And a lot of people, including myself, are looking at Ajax as someone who can play in Doc Rivers' rotation as soon as next season. So Summer League was an opportunity for him to brush up on some of his more glaring issues, because as solid as he was defensively, he definitely made some rookie errors on that end, and offensively, his shot and pace of play were a bit concerning. Unfortunately, after watching him at Summer League, those same concerns still remain, and it was evident after just one game, as Ajax shot 0 of 5 from deep against Chicago in Game 1, and 14% from deep as a whole throughout the 3 games he played in Summer League before fracturing his finger against the Clippers. So that certainly won't help his shot either. In his defense, the floor spacing wasn't great given Milwaukee's lack of on-ball creators, which certainly won't be an issue with the actual team, but 14% isn't what you wanted to see out of him. And the pace issues carried over as well, because Ajax plays way too fast when he's trusted to handle the ball, and because of that, he turns the ball over in bunches. If he could just figure out how to slow himself down a bit, it would do wonders for his game, because he's honestly a pretty decent natural playmaker. But until then, these same issues will continue to plague him. As for Chris Livingston, he was probably the Bucks' most consistent and reliable producer over the course of the summer, putting up about 15 and 9 on 54% from the field and 43% from deep, and the efficiency speaks for itself. Livingston was easily the best play finisher on the team, especially in transition, as Chris ran the floor better than anyone else, and to top all of it off, he paired it with elite floor spacing. The most impressive thing to me about Livingston's buckets is that they were all good looks. Catch and shoot rhythm threes, transition lays, backdoor cuts. The dude just never gave up on a play offensively, and it also explains why he's such a phenomenal rebounder despite being just 6'6", because bro was always crashing and battling on the boards, both offensively and defensively. And speaking of the defense, I saw plenty of flashes from him on that end as well. Like I said before, he's only 6'6", so he's a bit undersized as a 4 in the height department, but at 220 pounds with a 6'11 wingspan, Livingston has the ideal strength and length to be an effective defender at his position. It's just a matter of moving his feet laterally, as there was one possession against Chicago where he stuck pretty good on-ball defense for most of the shot clock until the very last second, when the offensive player slowed his drive and caught Livingston on his back foot after a Euro step, which resulted in an easy 2 for the Bulls. But the flashes are there, and we've even seen them at an NBA level, so it'll be interesting to monitor Livingston's development moving forward. And with the word development being mentioned, now would be a good time to touch on MarJon Beauchamp's Summer League performance, because it wasn't a great sign to see the former first round pick play in his third consecutive Summer League, and it brought up some concerns about his development amongst Bucks circles. And safe to say, those concerns were valid, because Beauchamp didn't have a great summer. He was decent in Milwaukee's first game against Chicago with a 22-piece, and he pretty comfortably looked like the Bucks' best player in that game. But after that, it all went downhill. Going into the summer, Doc Rivers drilled into Beauchamp that he wanted to see him make quicker decisions with the ball in his hands and not to overthink the game. But MarJon did the complete opposite in Vegas, as he struggled with the ball in his hands and seemingly folded whenever the opposing defense threw more bodies his way. The Clippers in particular applied full court pressure on Beauchamp, which forced him to speed up his game to the point where he couldn't even make decisions. He'd just get ripped or turn the ball over, and his IQ as a whole just isn't great. And when you compare this with his sometimes questionable shot selection, it's just clear that he wasn't comfortable with the ball in his hands. But his offensive game wasn't even my biggest concern. It was the defense. Physically, he has all the tools to be a good defender, and he certainly had his defensive moments during the Summer League. For example, you could see the difference in experience between him and Bulls first round pick Modest Buzelis at the very beginning of the Chicago game, because MarJon was pushing the rookie around at the point of attack to start that game. Beauchamp was also very active in the passing lanes during that game, totaling 4 steals on the day. And he even had a moment against Emoni Bates in the Cavs game where he forced him into a 10-second backcourt violation. However, most of these good defensive moments from Beauchamp occurred at the very beginning of the game, and he always tapered off as the game went on. I mean, I was just talking about how well he started against Bulls rookie Modest Buzelis, but look at this play just before the end of the half. Beauchamp moves his feet well and stays with Buzelis for this whole possession, but just decides not to contest at the last minute. It's effort plays like that that are going to determine whether or not MarJon has a role on this team moving forward. And more often than not, Beauchamp's defensive effort just isn't there, and he becomes more and more susceptible to getting blown by and looking like a turnstile as the game continues to play out. So the time is ticking on Beauchamp's development, and if he doesn't turn it around soon, the Bucks may call it quits with him sooner rather than later. Which brings us to the last player I wanted to discuss, two-way Ryan Rollins, who in my opinion is Milwaukee's best two-way contract player. And I wanted to end the video with him because as bad as the Bucks looked over the summer, watching Rollins' point of attack defense always brought a smile to my face, because he was an absolute pest on the ball. And it wasn't just the 1.5 steals per game, because the box score doesn't tell the whole story. It's the eye test that tells the real story with Rollins, because he swarmed the perimeter in Vegas, as he moves his feet extremely well laterally and uses his 6'10 wingspan to his full advantage despite being just 6'3, and because of his length and defensive activity as a whole, it was pretty rare to see Rollins get blown by on the perimeter. Offensively, he isn't much of a true point guard, and he can struggle to create separation, but even with that being said, he can hit some pretty difficult shots, and his go-to is that turnaround jumper in the mid-range. Pair this with his solid off-ball cutting and his ability to convert on some pretty crafty finishes inside, and despite his on-ball limitations, he can still find ways to be impactful on the offensive end. But all in all, that's just my 2 cents on the Bucks' young core post-Summer League. I'd love to hear everyone else's opinion down in the comment section below, but for now, that's all I've got, and I'll see you in the next one.